I was sipping coffee beside a cobalt blue 1969 Pontiac GTO when a holster snapped and a voice cut the air like glass. Step away from the car now, hands where I can see them. And just like that, my quiet Saturday turned into a stage with strangers for an audience and a badge for a spotlight. You know what I mean? 10 minutes later, I wasn't the suspect anymore, the badge was. And the whole promenade watched pride fold in on itself like cheap lawn furniture. Yeah, that happened. My name is Reed Lawson, 41 senior investigator with the Federal Justice Division. Not the dramatic kind with movie speeches and chase scenes. The paperwork and patience kind. The kind that knows how to breathe when other people forget. I was parked at Northbridge Harbor's Riverside Promenade, the GTO set up like a postcard. Cobalt paint catching noon sun chrome smiling plate, RL 1969, my father's initials, his birth year. He rebuilt that car the summer his chemo went quiet, bolt by bolt, prayer by prayer. And he used to say, son, the world will try to take your time, your wallet, and your temper. Never let it take your dignity. So I keep my movements slow, my words soft, my temper zipped up in the same pocket as my ID. That was the plan then. Officer D. Mercer arrived with a jaw like he'd been chewing on other people's mistakes for breakfast and decided mine would taste good. Whose car is this? He asked, but the tone told me his mind was 3 steps ahead of his mouth. He circled the GTO like it had insulted his high school quarterback, glanced at the reflection of his own uniform in my window, then at me. A classic like this belongs to someone like me, not you. That someone like you hung in the air like a damp coat in a room with no heat, and I felt the old sting, the kind you don't cry about because it's tired of your tears. I swallowed it, let my voice drop a notch so it would land steady. Mine officer registration in my inside pocket plate ends in 1969 RL for Lawson, and if you run the plate, you'll be eating your lunch before it gets cold. We can both win today. He didn't hear win. He heard challenge. His hand hovered over the weapon. Like fear was a friend whispering bad advice. He snapped into his radio with a cadence that said he'd practiced it. Possible stolen vehicle suspect. Non-compliant potential armed threat. A sentence like a match tossed into dry grass. I blinked once and said it plain. You just lied on your own radio not to score a point. Just so the truth didn't feel alone. People paused as they do. When the wind shifts, a kid on a scooter rolled to a stop and lifted his phone. A nurse in scrubs put a hand on her daughter's shoulder. A dog stopped panting. Even the gulls that usually fight over fries went quiet. And then, like the city herself, choosing a side, a thin, determined voice behind us rose. That's Ray Lawson's boy. You watch your tone. I turned and there she was, Mrs. Louise Carter, bent but unbroken, 4 paper grocery bags hooked into forearms that looked like they'd carried this town more than once. She taught me in 2nd grade to fold paper cranes and stand up for the kid who never got picked. Officer Mercer told her, ma'am, step away from the scene, and she didn't budge. She tucked those bags close, gave me that teacher look. Reed Alexander, keep your hands where that man can see them and keep your chin where God can see you. Yes, ma'am, I said, and she faced him again. And you, if you point that thing at one more child of this city without cause, you're going to see God about it yourself. The air tightened. Another patrol car slid in and nudged a parked scooter. More phones rose like periscopes. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't move. I could picture the screen. My supervisor, SAC Keisha Din, probably asking where I was for our briefing. But survival beats punctual. Every time I told him again, Officer, I am a federal investigator. My ID is in my jacket. It will stay there until your weapon is holstered because I like my heart where it is. You can verify the plate in 30 seconds. We can both get back to lunch. He smirked. That smirk men practice when they're young and keep using long after it stops working. Federal. Sure, and I'm the mayor. The kid on the scooter typed faster. A live stream title reflected in a deli window. Blue GTO stop Northbridge Harbor. Maybe profiling the crowd, didn't shout yet. Crowds don't start at a shout. They start with a breath that lengthens and holds. I kept narrating my stillness so he couldn't rewrite it. Hands up, feet planted, not resisting, not running, not even scratching my nose. Then the 2nd unit arrived and the air temperature changed. Sergeant Elena Vega stepped out, steady eyes that do math in a storm. She assessed the scene in a glance. My stance, his half-drawn sidearm, the ring of phones, the averted eyes and clenched jaws. Mercer. What are we doing? She asked. Even professional, not performative. He waved her off without looking. I've got this. He doesn't have ID. He's stalling. He's hiding something. Hiding. What she said. He hasn't moved. His hands are up. This is a parking lot, not a war zone. Don't talk to me about optics, Mercer said. I care about staying alive. Optics is a lazy word people use when they're already wrong, but can't admit it, she answered. We're talking policy and probable cause. Run the plate, the rookie with her, Park cheek still learning how to shave, shifted like conscience had asked his feet to do something, sir. I can verify in 30 seconds, he offered. Mercer leveled a look that tried to reach through the young man's first year and grab his spine. You want to keep your badge past Thursday, keep your mouth shut. Park, didn't he? Slid into the driver's seat, typed fast. The crowd crackled, a deli TV flipped to a live banner, NBN Quickline developing situation. Riverside Promenade, you could feel the city turning its head. You want control? I told Mercer. Fine. Take control. Verify the car belongs to me. Rein your story back into the gate before it tramples you. He stared at me. Something flickered. Not doubt exactly. The pre-doubt, the place where certainty hears footsteps behind it. Park cleared his throat. Plate RL 1969 registered to a Reed Lawson 421 Bayview title. Clean, no hits. And the sentence laid down like a railroad tie. The phones leaned forward. The murmur rose. Then why is the gun out? Then holster it. Then say sorry. Mercer doubled down. The way gamblers do when the table is already gone. Could be forged, he said. These people know how to play the system. These people. Vega repeated, softer than a scolding, sharper than a blade, the first real crack in his armor. I asked permission to present. ID narrated the reach the way my father taught me in a kitchen that smelled like chili and motor oil. Right hand moving to jacket fingers on the leather wallet, out slow. Open in the air like a book. The gold shield and federal seal caught the sun and wrote a bright line across Vega's face. Clear, she said. Then to him, holster. Now pride is sticky and hates daylight. He held the muzzle too long, then slid the weapon home with a scrape that scraped him too. The cheer that rose wasn't joy, it was relief. With a sore throat, I didn't celebrate. I lowered my hands to my shoulders and stood still. The news van's door slid open and Maya Patel stepped out with her mic and her steady cadence. We are live at Riverside Promenade, where a routine stop just turned into a public reckoning. Agent Lawson, do you want to make a statement? I looked at the crowd, at Mercer, at Vega, at Mrs. Carter's hands pressed on paper bags like prayer. Kept my voice small and whole. This isn't about me. It's about how fast a story can turn a person into a threat when the person hasn't moved at all. The crowd quieted like they heard their own lives echo back. Sirens grew low and important from the fountain end. An unmarked black SUV rolled up and out. Stepped Commissioner Harold Quinn with a face that said, sleep was secondary to truth. What in the world is going on? He asked. Not for camera. For record. Mercer jumped first like a man trying to steal the last chair when the music stops. Commissioner, I had reason to suspect. Quinn lifted a palm. You mean the federal investigator whose ID is in front of your sergeant? That man. He asked for the plate, result, and body cams. Park said, yes, sir. From the start. Quinn's eyes warmed a degree at the rookie cooled at Mercer 18 months ago. You were warned about aggressive stops that didn't meet policy. 3 complaints for profiling. 1 sustained for force, and today in front of children and cameras, you manufactured a threat and pointed your weapon at a compliant citizen. Why? It's a misunderstanding. Mercer said. It's a choice, Quinn answered. No need to shout. When you have facts, he asked for Mercer's badge and weapon. The metal hit leather and the promenade went hush. Like church. When the prayer starts, the rookie stared at his boots. Vega looked at the horizon like she knew what accountability costs and still bought it. And Mrs. Carter set her bags down one by one like flowers. And here's the twist that made the internet do what it does. Quinn turned and saw Mrs. Carter and said, Aunt Louise, you called me, didn't you? She lifted her chin. Harold Eugene, I taught you long division and how to look a person in the eye. Don't you start forgetting either. The crowd exhaled as if the town itself remembered its elders in one breath. Quinn nodded to her to the moment to the cameras that will still be rolling when the sun goes down. Then he turned to me and said, Agent Lawson, thank you for keeping your composure. The department will handle the rest. And he meant it. Internal affairs set up in the SUV's shade, that careful dance of notebooks and body cam pulls and dates and times. I gave a statement right there because the truth doesn't need an office. I didn't pile on, I said what happened. And no more. Quinn faced Mercer with 3 paths: criminal charges and termination, resignation with forfeiture, or cooperation with a federal oversight program that would drag sunlight into every corner and sit him in rooms with the people he had treated like shadows. It wasn't a mercy, it was a mirror with a clock. He chose the 3rd path with a voice that had lost its swagger. And no, I won't lie, I didn't feel triumphant. What I felt was maybe the next man with hands up won't have to gamble his heartbeat on a stranger's pride. That night I put my father's wrench set on my kitchen table and his old badge case beside it and wrote 3 words on a yellow sticky note and stuck it to the chrome of the toaster, because that's where I look before I step into the day. Dignity is policy. The week after, the town got loud and useful council hearings with people who've been quiet too long, telling stories like they'd been saving breath in jars. The FJD sent a team not to bully but to measure. We audited stops, captured data, mapped the gaps. Turns out feelings leave fingerprints. Who gets pulled over, who gets searched, who gets believed. Numbers don't snitch, they testify. Quinn didn't get defensive. He got specific. Signed an order that every stop requires a written justification keyed to policy. Not gut body cam review. Moved from occasionally to always an independent civilian board. Got teeth and a calendar. And we built a training block that wasn't a windowless slideshow, but 40 hours on the street with pastors and teachers and EMTs and kids who can tell you where the lighting is bad on their walk home. Vega took that unit and made it honest. Don't teach officers to be less human or more robotic, she told me over burnt coffee that tasted like hope anyway. Teach them to be better at being human under pressure. The rookie Park sent me an email. I still keep starred. Subject line said, I kept it on. He meant the camera, his conscience, his promise. And on a Wednesday evening when the sunlight went gold and the city felt almost soft, we opened the Ray Lawson Project in a borrowed storefront with a flickering sign, a non-profit with training data, transparency, legal clinics, repair circles where apologies have to come with action or they don't count. The first night we had 5 people and a pot of coffee strong enough to wake a county by month. 3. We were fielding calls from departments 2 states over. Maya Patel didn't just replay the holster clip, she asked if the numbers moved 6 months in. They did stop. Disparities down, complaints down, officer morale up in a way that shocked the loudest skeptics. Because when rules are clear and bias is named, good officers don't feel handcuffed, they feel backed up. And Mercer, I won't write him as a cartoon villain whose only purpose is to fall. He sat in listening sessions stone-faced for weeks, like words were wind. Then one afternoon in a gym that smelled like varnish and sneakers, a single mother told how she got pulled over with her feverish child and was talked to like a suspect instead of a parent. Something cracked in him, not a collapse, a hairline that let light in. He asked for more sessions, volunteered to speak to recruits, not as a hero or a meme, but as a man telling on himself in the exact ways that might save somebody else from copying him. He stood in front of a class and said, "Pride without compassion is just arrogance in uniform." The room didn't clap, it breathed. And do I forgive him some mornings? I do some nights I don't. Forgiveness is not a switch, it's a maintenance schedule too. I invited him once to a panel with Vega and Park and Mrs. Carter in the front row with her hat like a crown. He spoke plain, the rookies wrote notes, and after he sat down, he didn't look lighter so much as more true. On the 1-year mark, I drove the GTO back to the promenade and found a small plaque near the maple that drops the most leaves to everyone almost turned into a headline, and to everyone who chose truth before pride. This city owes you its next right step. I didn't cry. I'm not wired that way, but I stood there long enough for the cobalt to mirror the clouds and thought about how a holster snap can teach a town the difference between control and cowardice, between optics and policy, between apology and repair. A boy on a scooter, not the same one the next generation of witness, slowed and said, "Cool car, belonged to my father." I told him must be a lot of stories in it. He said, "Yeah, there are, and here's where I leave you with the thing that splits rooms and lights up comment sections." Quinn gave Mercer a path that wasn't prison. He chose reform work and testimony and the unglamorous grind of making amends. Some of you will say that was soft, some of you will say it was smart. Leverage his failure to build a guardrail for others. Both of you will be a little right. That's the mess, that's the work. Accountability. without humiliation, repair, without forgetting proof, won't be a headline. It'll be the stop that never becomes a story, because policy held and pride didn't hijack the wheel until then. I keep the badge in my pocket, the plate on my car, and my father's sentence taped to my toaster. Dignity is policy. And for anyone who needs to hear it today, your calm is not compliance. Your caution is not consent. Your worth doesn't hinge on somebody else's suspicion. Keep your hands where they can see them and your chin where God can see you. We'll keep pushing the paperwork that makes that more than a pretty line, and now it's your turn. Was the consequence right or too lenient? Have you seen a stop go sideways for no good reason? What does real accountability look like? Where you live? Drop your city and your story in the comments. Push back if you disagree. Add detail if you've been there, and if you believe dignity should be policy everywhere, hit. Share this with someone who needs the reminder. Subscribe so we can keep turning hard moments into better rules. Your voice decides whether this stays a headline or becomes a habit.